Creepy urban legends from all over the world choke Doberman. It is an urban legend originating from Sydney, Australia, and it tells the story of a Doberman who choked on something. One night a married couple went out for a walk and sat in a restaurant. When they got home, they saw their dog choking in the living room. The man panicked and fainted, and his wife decided to call her old friend, a veterinarian, and agreed to bring the dog to the veterinary clinic. After she took the dog to the clinic, the woman decided to return home and help her husband go to bed. It takes her some time to do this, and meanwhile the phone rang. The vet was hysterically shouting into the phone that they needed to get out of their house quickly. A married couple leaves the house as soon as possible. When they go down their stairs, several policemen are already running towards them. When the woman asked what happened, one of the policemen replied that their dog choked on a man's finger. There is most likely still a burglar in their house. Soon, the former owner of the finger was found unconscious in the couple's bedroom. Bridge of the Crying Child. According to this legend, a couple was driving home from church with their child. It was raining heavily, and soon they had to cross a flooded bridge. As soon as they entered the bridge, it turned out that there was much more water than they thought, and the car got stuck. They decided that they should go for help. The woman stayed waiting, but got out of the car for a reason that can only be guessed. When she turned away from the car, she suddenly heard her baby crying loudly. She returned to the car and found that her baby had been carried away by the water. According to the same legend, if you are on the same bridge, you can still hear a baby crying there. The White Death in this story is about a little girl from Scotland who hated life so much that she wanted to destroy everything connected with it. She ruined herself. By a terrible coincidence, all members of her family died a few days later, and their limbs were torn off. Legend says that when you learn about the White Death, the ghost of a little girl can find you and knock on your door many times. Each knock gets louder until the person opens the door, after which she kills him so that he does not tell anyone about her existence. Its main task is to make sure that no one knows about it. The most creepy places in the world that give you goosebumps are the Trenton Psychiatric Clinic in the USA. In the state of New Jersey, you can visit one of the most creepy psychiatric hospitals, an abandoned Trent clinic. In a medical institution, which by definition has heavy energy, real horrors were happening. Dr. Henry Cotton, who headed the hospital in 1876, decided that psychiatric diseases were the result of infectious lesions. The doctor read the teeth as the main infectious focus, since they are closest to the brain. When Cotton pulled out the patient's teeth, he concluded that the infection had spread to the internal organs. In the operating room, the doctor removed the poor patient's gallbladder, colon, glands, ovaries, and other organs. Cotton brilliantly forged medical documents. Everyone believed that the recovery at the Trenton Clinic reached 85%. In reality, the mortality rate in the hospital was almost 50%. After some time, complaints from relatives of patients began to arrive at Cotton. As a result, a special commission was created to investigate what was happening. The real statistics shocked the public. It turned out that the recovery in the hospital was only 8%. Cotto was convicted. A confession of the doctor's guilt would cause a great resonance in society and doubt the medical system. The case was closed. The psychiatrist asked to pull out a few teeth and returned to the management of the hospital. He worked there until retirement, continuing to conduct experiments on humans. Brave tourists who have visited an abandoned hospital often say that objects move in the room, moans and voices are heard. Chapel of Bones in Portugal. In the Portuguese city, the Chapel of Bones is one of the main attractions. It is known for the fact that the walls are completely decorated with real human bones and skulls. The monks built the chapel to remind their brothers and parishioners that earthly life is passing. At the entrance to the building there is an inscription, "We are the bones that lie here, waiting for you." But there wasn't a rational reason for such a structure. All the cemeteries of the city were filled in those years. As a result, 5,000 skeletons were seized, the bones of which were used in the construction of the chapel. The inscription "Death Day is better than birthday" is still preserved on the roof. I'll tell you about one of my friends, whose name was Anton. I remember how Tosha loved all sorts of legends and scary stories, but never believed in them. He replied that it was all untrue, a hoax, a fairy tale. And one day at a country camp, he heard from the guys a new story about an elevator shaft. It told about how once in an ordinary house an elevator car with a man who was inside broke off. He died immediately, crashing at the bottom. Now moans, breathing and creaks are always heard in this mine. Booths are falling down and people are dying there. Those who remained alive said that in the elevator they heard breathing and creaking, and then a terrible crack, after which the cabin fell down. They did not have time to put a new booth, as soon as it broke off again. Residents stopped using the elevator in fear, but still, passing by the elevator, people heard moans, so plaintive that it just hurt their hearts. Of course, the police were called, but there was nothing and no one in the mine. The priest was also called, but even when everything was lit up there, the elevator still broke off, and the groans continued. People think that this is the man who broke off the very first. He moans, and his ghost is suffering there and arranges everything. Anton, of course, did not believe this story and wanted to check everything himself. He found out somewhere this house, the entrance and, of course, the ill-fated elevator. The boys just laughed at him, saying, was he really going to go there? Of course, he answered proudly, there is nothing there, and all these are fairy tales. Arriving a week later from the camp, the boy decided to go to the very entrance the next day. In order not to be bored, Anton called his friend Stas for company. The guys took flashlights, pocket knives, put it all in a backpack, went to look for adventures in this entrance. Are you sure it's all bullshit about this elevator and that there's a ghost there? I asked already near the entrance to the entrance basin. Of course I'm sure, just check that this is the most ordinary entrance, and that's it, Anton smiled in response. On the first floor, the boys were already standing in front of the elevator. There was complete silence, no noise could be heard anywhere, there were no moans either. Let's do this, Anton began to command. I'll go to the 12th floor, and you go up the stairs. Hey, it's not fair, I also want to take the elevator, Stas spoke indignantly. Okay, let me take the elevator alone, and I'm already down the stairs, and you're on the elevator. All right, Stas agreed and ran up the stairs. When Stas got up, the elevator hadn't arrived yet. He began to get very nervous, because the elevator had been coming for a long time too. 2 minutes later, when Stas was about to call his hand and run to call for help, the elevator finally arrived. Why have you been gone so long? Stas began to scold Anton. You see, Anton began to say, without leaving the booth, I was in the elevator and jumped a little, and pressed the stop button. And sat. There was nothing, no creaking, no groaning. In general, not a story, but a complete one. Before the boy could finish, there was a terrible crack and the cable in the elevator broke, and the boy flew down with the booth. Shouting at the whole entrance with a terrible scream, Stas rushed up the stairs to the first floor, wiping his tears as he went. Having gone down to the first floor, Stas called an ambulance and could hardly tell them what had happened. Doctors got Anton out of the mine. He was in a very serious condition and had difficulty breathing. Stas wanted to go to the ambulance with a friend, and when he was already leaving the entrance, he heard a grinding in the mine and groans. A loud, prolonged and agonizing moan. Anton did not live to see the next morning. He died at night from serious injuries. After this incident, Stas stopped communicating with everyone at all and still walks pale. The mine was closed, people only use the stairs, but sometimes they still hear moans.